Brenda lived a simple life. Each day was quiet, predictable. She woke before the sun. Brenda worked at the local bakery. The smell of bread always clung to her apron. It was a comforting scent. Brenda lived alone. Her small house was tidy. She had few possessions, but they were precious to her. A framed photo of her parents sat on a dusty shelf. At night, Brenda would sit by the window. She would watch the stars appear in the sky. She often wished for a bit of excitement. Little did she know, her life was about to change forever. One cool morning, Brenda went to work as usual, but something stopped her in her tracks. There, by the bakery's garbage bins, was a basket. Brenda cautiously approached. Her heart pounded in her chest. What was inside? Brenda held her breath. She peered into the basket, and there, nestled among rags, was a baby. The baby girl was fast asleep. She was so tiny, so innocent. Brenda's heart melted. Who would abandon such a precious creature? Brenda gently lifted the baby. The baby stirred, but didn't wake. Brenda noticed a small note pinned to her blanket. It simply read, "Her name is Betty. Please take care of her." Tears welled up in Brenda's eyes. She knew what she had to do. Brenda took the baby home. She warmed some milk and fed little Betty. The baby drank greedily. Brenda held her close. She vowed to protect and love her always. This was her Betty now, her daughter, her family. News traveled fast in their small town. Soon, everyone knew about Brenda finding Betty. Some people gossiped. They questioned Brenda's decision to keep the child. They whispered about what a burden it would be. Brenda ignored them. Others were kind. They brought Brenda clothes and toys for Betty. They offered to help in any way they could. Brenda was grateful for their support. She never felt alone. Betty thrived under Brenda's care. She was a happy, curious baby. Her laughter filled Brenda's home with a joy she had never known. Years passed. Betty grew into a bright and cheerful child. Brenda worked tirelessly to provide for her. She scrimped and saved. Brenda wanted to give Betty the best life possible. Their bond was unbreakable. They were a family, bound by love and gratitude. Betty was the light of Brenda's life. She was a bright and inquisitive child, always eager to learn. Brenda taught her to read and write. They would spend hours at the library. Betty loved to listen to Brenda's stories, especially the one about how she found her. Betty was popular in school. She was kind and friendly to everyone. She excelled in her studies. Brenda was so proud of the young woman Betty was becoming. She was strong, compassionate, and full of life, just like her mother. One day a stranger came to town. He was tall and well-dressed. He carried himself with an air of sadness. The stranger went straight to Brenda's bakery. He asked to speak with Brenda. His voice was deep and filled with emotion. Brenda's heart skipped a beat. She had a bad feeling. The stranger introduced himself as Xavier. He explained that he was Betty's father. Brenda's blood ran cold. This was the moment she had dreaded, the moment she had tried so hard to prepare for. But nothing could truly prepare her for this. Xavier explained that he had not abandoned Betty. He had been away, searching for a better life for them. He had left Betty with his sister, but she had fallen ill and could no longer care for the baby. In desperation, she left Betty where she knew someone kind would find her, near the bakery. Brenda listened in stunned silence. She looked at Xavier. He was filled with remorse. Brenda could see the love he had for Betty in his eyes. He had come back for his daughter, but what about Brenda? What about their family? Xavier wanted to take Betty with him. He promised to provide for her, to give her a good life. Brenda's heart ached. She knew that Xavier had a right to his daughter, but the thought of losing Betty was unbearable. Brenda spent a sleepless night. She cried until there were no tears left. In the morning, she knew what she had to do. She would tell Betty the truth. She would let Betty decide. It was the hardest thing Brenda had ever done. Betty was shocked. She had so many questions. Brenda answered them honestly. She told Betty how much she loved her, how much it would pain her to let her go. But she also told Betty that Xavier was her father and that he deserved a chance to be in her life. Betty decided to go with Xavier. She wanted to get to know her father. Brenda understood. She helped Betty pack her things. Her heart felt like it was breaking into a million pieces. Xavier was grateful for Brenda's understanding. He could see how much she loved Betty. Before they left, Xavier made Brenda a proposition. He asked her to come with them. He had a job for her, taking care of Betty. He knew that Betty wouldn't be happy without Brenda in her life. Brenda was hesitant at first, but she could see how happy it would make Betty if she came with them. Besides, she couldn't bear to be separated from the child she had raised as her own. And so, with a mix of trepidation and hope, Brenda agreed to go. Life with Xavier and Betty was an adjustment for Brenda. She had to learn to share Betty with her father, but Xavier was a good man. He treated Brenda with respect and kindness. He was grateful for the love and care she had given Betty. As they spent more time together, Brenda began to see a different side of Xavier. He was charming, intelligent, and had a good sense of humor. He made Brenda laugh, something she hadn't done in a long time. Brenda found herself drawn to him. Xavier, too, found himself falling for Brenda. He admired her strength, her compassion, and her unwavering love for Betty. He realized that Brenda was not just a caretaker for his daughter. She was an extraordinary woman. He was falling in love with her. One evening, under a sky full of stars, Xavier confessed his feelings for Brenda. He told her how much she meant to him and Betty. He asked her to marry him. Brenda's heart soared. She had never thought she would find love again. And yet, here it was, staring her in the face. With tears of joy, Brenda said yes. Betty was overjoyed. She had always seen Brenda as her mother. Now it was official. They were a family, the three of them bound by love, gratitude, and a twist of fate. Their journey had been long and arduous, but they had found their way to each other, and that was all that mattered. From that day forward, Brenda, Xavier, and Betty lived as a happy family. They faced life's challenges together, their bond unbreakable. They had found their happily ever after, proving that sometimes, even from the most unexpected beginnings, the greatest love stories can bloom.